so much time is spent on video games online right now. We're seeing the era of spatial computing and the metaverse. And from that shows that linear storytelling is really a thing of the past. And it's now about non-linear storytelling.
So, Sami, welcome to the EVA 2023 live podcast. How are you doing today? How's Berlin treating you?
I love it. It's my first time in Berlin.
First time in Berlin.
Yes.
Have you had a chance to do anything touristy or fun yet?
We've gone on the electric scooters around Berlin, so that was quite fun on the way to the conference. So got to see the sights that way.
Yeah, so you've not fallen into the old trap of come to a city for work and you just see the inside of the hotel and the conference center and the airport.
No, I always make an active effort to embrace myself into the city and immerse.
Oh, that's the best way of doing it. So Sami, for people who don't know you or your background and what you do, what is your background and what do you do?
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Sami Tauber. My company is called Vinci, but it's also my artist and stage name, Vinci. It was inspired by Leonardo da Vinci. Growing up, I just loved what he stood for in terms of being a polymath. And I think that's just been always my way. I've always followed my curiosity. Obviously, I'm a multimedia creative, but I love the future and technology, hence why I'm here today. And I had this idea in 2018 to create this 3D avatar character called Vinci, who is a fictional super sentient AI superheroine from the intergalactic future. I also love, Star Wars, Star Trek, and science fiction as a genre. So merging all that together, I came up with this persona and personality to build all my multimedia IP and content around.
So let's begin just on the most fundamental level. How would you define an avatar?
Ooh, well, actually, technically, the word avatar derives from the ancient Sanskrit word avatara, which means descent. So if you think about it, it's a bit matrixy, but we are all technically avatars. It means descent. So our human bodies are a vessel for our consciousness. But if we extend this concept then to, let's say, the digital realm, it could be per se our consciousness extended into these digital beings. And the beauty about that is you can defy physics and embrace the imagination and portray however you would like to portray yourself in these digital realms.
So effectively uncoupling your consciousness from your physical body and allowing that to be expressed in a digital way however you much desire.
Exactly. It's dynamic, it's interoperable, it's fluid, it's a way of exploring your identity. And also maybe it could be a benign version as it's showcasing your very essence, your very spirit.
And how do you think avatars are going to shift? Because if you probably look at stuff like video games, right? There've been avatars in some form for years now, but in terms of communication, it seems to be much more of a burgeoning field where, there are no rules being written.
Oh, it's true. I mean, we saw it with the pandemic, right? We're all locked away and had to embrace the Zoom. And then we're just seeing these 2D flat screens and versions of ourselves projected on the internet. But what I did during that time, because I had the Vinci project, besides creating all my music and producing it, and then creating multimedia IP content in this program called Unreal Game Engine, where I create content around my character Vinci, I decided what would happen if I just spoke to people in general conversations as my Vinci avatar. And so what I did is I broadcasted it live from Unreal Engine, used a plugin NDI source, and put it into programs such as Zoom, and as a social experiment, started talking to people as Vinci to see their reactions. It was very interesting, but I funneled that mainly into a podcast show I started actually called Future Humans during the pandemic. And it was really interesting because I would speak to humans and thought leaders across the industry, especially with emerging next-gen technology, and about the impact of humans and AI. And it was quite ironic having this fictional, super sentient AI superheroine character from the future puppeted by a human talking about these ideas and topics.
Yeah, it really wrinkles my brain to use a phrase of that kind of, you're an avatar being someone else combined. But then I kind of want to go back. How do you find people interacted with you when you were Vinci in that situation? How did that change?
Have you heard of the Proteus effect?
Explain it to me anyway.
Yeah, so it's the idea of your behavior being impacted by how you project yourself in the digital realms as this digital avatar. So that's more on a personal level, which I can speak about later. But to answer your question about how people reacted, mixed reactions, to be honest, and that is exactly what I expected. Some people were fully into it, and like embracing the fictional story that I've been building, and other people were really confused. But at the same time, then they started thinking about their own identity online and how they want to represent themselves. So it was really more a social experiment for why I did it. And at the end of the day, I'm actually a storyteller. And so I also wrote a novel about Vinci and this fictional space AI opera universe. There's a whole cast of characters. And so it was a way of bringing this character into the social sphere so people could become more familiar with her.
And how did you find it impacted you? Did you feel more free, different, able to express different parts of your personality when you were moving through Vinci? How did it operate for you?
It's interesting because I'm not a fan of this word physical and digital, but that is really what the Vinci project is. It isn't just digital and hiding behind a digital avatar character. I'm also a live performer on stage and I perform as myself, but I'm embracing the spirit and role of a superheroine. So it's a really interesting perspective the way I'm, handling this, because I'm combining the human aspect with the digital aspect and seeing, like the Proteus effect, it empower my own life by becoming this super sentient AI superheroine character. And it's really interesting because have you heard of the concept of monomyth, the hero's journey?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
it's a
Joseph
classic
Campbell style.
classic storytelling. And so that is obviously the classic, storytelling arc of a superhero, superheroine. And so you can draw parallels between your personal life and fictional life, of course. And that is the power of storytelling. It's using the imagination to create a change in society. And that's why I love forward-thinking science fiction stories like Star Wars and Star Trek, because it creates this degree of excitement that we don't see enough of today. There's a great movie, Tomorrowland by Disney. And you know that scene in the classroom and they all sharing doomsday, like 1984, the world's going to end, doomsday, Terminator, doom-esque scenario, AI will take over. But then the main character, Casey, puts up her hand and she goes, how will we fix it? And then that also relates to, in that movie, they talk about the old shaman's tale, the two wolves, which one will you feed, love or fear? Choose love. So that is the whole mentality and mission behind the Vinci project for why I created this character.
And how do you think other people could benefit from taking on these digital avatars, to expressing themselves in a way that, yeah, it's new, right? Like it's a hard thing to kind of encourage people to do because, like you've mentioned, it's a new form of storytelling. It's a way of expressing yourself that, it's not taught in school. Like you can't, like poetry or, filming, like this digital avatar, this way of expressing hidden element parts of yourself and bring that out to the world is, completely new. There's no book for it. So how would people go about exploring and finding that out themselves?
It's really interesting, that question, because there's multiple layers to that answer. On the surface level, there's obviously the technology and the next gen storytelling. And, it's like a sandbox for the imagination. And what's really interesting is obviously so much time is spent on video games online right now. We're seeing the era of spatial computing and the metaverse. And from that shows that linear storytelling is really a thing of the past. And it's now about non-linear storytelling, interactive and immersive narratives where we bring people into the story and immerse them as much as possible. It's not so much about idolizing, a character like from a canon or something like that. It's but you become the character, you have the agency, you have the power. And the whole purpose of Da Vinci is it's an exercise that I'm doing for myself, but it's also an idealism for what you can do as well. And you can create your own story, you can have your own agency. And that is, I believe, where we're going with the future of storytelling. We're converging all the different forms of media together in order to create this new form of interactive narratives. And that's what I'm really energized about.
And how would you imagine that looks like in 15 years or so? So, would it be that a movie is released and then there's more than a video game tie, and then you have ChatGPT, you can chat with these characters from movies? How do you, kind of putting words in your mouth there, but how do you envision the future of this sort of storytelling looking like?
Oh, I'm just so energized about it. It's going to be this mix between AI and human creative output, obviously. And what we'll have to navigate as a human species is how to embrace AI from a love-based mentality, not be fearful of it, but also acknowledge that it's its own entity, it's its own being. It does have creative output. And how can we symbolize